Hello and welcome to the Side One YouTube channel. My name is Ray, and in this video building the Micro SMT pick and place version 3 machine, we're up to the electrical assembly. So let's start off. Our first item is going to be this piece, and this is our solenoid valve installation, or this is the mount for it. So what we're going to do is take these two solenoid valves. These are FA2021B 24 volt DC air valves, and we're going to mount them to this plate, and we're going to mount them like that. Now this requires M3 by 8mm screws, and we're only mounting to, there's 4 holes in this, but we're only mounting to one side because we've got to mount 2 of them on this. Yep, that looks exactly like it does in the documentation. Next trick, these two M3 by 55mm long screws. No, these are 45. I haven't seen anything longer. I think the documentation might be in error, but these screws go through these holes here and here, stick out the other side, which match up with holes up the top up here. So we're going to put those in. These are a Phillips screw. Mounts over the top of the stepper motor for the 2 heads. I think 55s would be way too long. Definitely 45. Okay, so the next one to go on is they've called it a tank chain. I've always called it a cable chain. So these are 1 meter long. The kit comes with 2 of them, and they actually feel pretty good, these ones. Now these are held in with the M3 by 8 screws and these M3 turn-in T-nuts. And there's 2 of those to be fitted. And it drops into the back slot. It looks like this almost wants to be turned over. Because it's supposed to clip onto the top here, but this is upside down. Now I have seen this sort of setup before. Okay, so a little bit of levering down, that pops out, and then this can be popped back in on the other way. And that lines up nicely. And more M3. M3 by 10 screw and an M3 nut. over on the end over here, we've got to add in these two brackets, which will support the cable chain. And that's this cable chain. So once again, we're going to be using the M3 by 8mm screw. And we've got two of those to put on. And it goes onto the lower slot of this upper rail. So this goes in this way. And I am going to have to flip this end. So before I put this on, so you can see what I'm actually doing, I'm just using a tool to lever this up, to pop that out, turn it over, and pop it back in. So before I do that, I'll put these two screws in. They're M10s. Sorry, M3 by 10mm. And again, there's supposed to be two nuts. So let me just find those nuts. Can't find the nut in there, but that's not a major problem for me because I have heaps of nuts in my kit here. I'll probably find that M3 nut somewhere in the kit later on. This one goes into under this screw here, so we are probably going to have to replace this screw. And we might get away with it. I'd be almost inclined to shorten that cable tray or cable chain. Same with this one. From there up to here, and you can see how far out it overhangs. It probably doesn't need to overhang that far, so I may end up shortening those cable chains. And it doesn't look completely square to me either. So I'll look into that a bit later. For now, let's keep going. It does look a little bit shorter in their documentation when this is all the way forward, so I may just take a few links out. But let's keep going. So the parts I've got on hand are for the version 3.3, but there is a new version for the camera mount, and I haven't actually printed out that new version of the camera mount at the moment. So I will have to use the original parts, and I may have to do an upgrade down the track. Okay, so this is the camera mount part, and we're using this camera. Okay, so M3-8 and another one of these lock nuts, locking T-nuts. Now I'm not going to do that up overly tight because I may have to relocate that to position it correctly. There are the bottom plates, and these are the bottom plates, or two of them anyway. There are a total of 4. We just unwrap them. Actually, I got that pretty close. Now, I'm not sure if they mount on the top or underneath those plates. At the moment, I've just got them sitting on top, but they're not meant to be installed just yet, so I'm just going to put them aside down here. But I've got that camera not too far off where it needs to be. This piece is called the origin hook, and it's held in with what looks like 2 M3x8 screws and T-nuts. And there is a small square PCB. I haven't found it yet, but I haven't unwrapped everything either. And when I do find it, it's got to be stuck on there. And this is mounted somewhere in this area around here. Let me just move this back out of the way so you can see it. And it's mounted to the top rail. This piece, I believe, is the anti-collision piece. X-axis anti-collision. I'm just going to go and verify that in my 3D printing software. That's it, and that's a M3x8 screw and nut. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if this was only supposed to have 1 T-nut in it, and instead of going into these 2 slots in the middle, it's just supposed to go into that one. It would line up a lot better if it did. Feels better. I still think I need to trim that length down a lot. In fact, I think I will do that. But let's keep going for now. Now there's a Y-axis end stop, which looks like this. And that gets mounted on this side. Okay, so something I have discovered is in the printed manual or the PDF file for the frame assembly, it missed installing these 2 parts, and that's led to an error in part of my build. On the back here, I've got the CP45 tool mounts mounted on the wrong rail, so they should be mounted on one of these rails further back, and it was bothering me because I didn't know why. So now that I've worked that out, let's rectify that problem. So The other thing I've done is I have shortened these two drag chains down, so all the way back it doesn't protrude far past the end of the x-axis, and I've also shortened the y-axis one. They're down to near half their length. I actually joined the bits I removed, and this is what I have left over from the two 1 meter lengths. Where I'm planning on putting this machine when I finish building it is not going to have a great deal of room, so let's start by assembling these. And then I'll move those to tool holders. So as best I can make out, we're using these M5 screws. These are a flathead or a countersunk screw, and they're not very long. So when measuring the flathead, you go from the flat to the end, and these would be about 8 millimeters. So M5 by 8. Now supplied and not used previously are these T-nut. Now these are the rotating type, and they're M5. Since they're the only M5 T-nuts, really should put it through here first. This is being incredibly stubborn to get in. I'm going to have to do this one off camera, but yeah, it goes in between this back rail and the bottom rail down here, and it does that on both sides and then again on the front side. So I'm just going to put all this on and then I'll come back. Okay, so I've installed these two rails, this one here and one at the back. Just add a view of the camera. Let me slide this forward. So this one here, and I moved these two tool holders from this rail back onto there where they should be. Now, one of the other things that I installed this, but I didn't know how high to put it initially, and I found under the main controller board, which mounts in around this area, these what they call fiducial targets, and that gets attached to that. Now the height of this is important, and I found out what that is now. Once you've got the deck in, these are the deck plates, they get mounted like so, and these parts here are the holders for the PCB. There's 4 of them, and they get bolted down onto the plate, and they've got a notch up the top which holds the PCB. So in theory, this fiducial little printed circuit board needs to be the same height as that little notch. So we adjust the height of this in those slides to match, and then I'll have to glue that down. They supplied 2 of those in the box, which is handy to have. I think earlier on I did say I shortened these chains down, and the other thing I discovered while I was putting these rails in, this camera, the up-facing camera, actually has extensions to the risers, which sets the LED module higher up. So I've installed those as well and got that into roughly the correct position, and roughly the correct position for that is where it is. There is a piece that has a cutout for the camera, which I haven't got out of the box at the moment. Alright, so that brings us back to our next part, which we need to install. And that is the PCB support. So there are 2 options. One is to print out this piece, and it wouldn't fit on my print bed, so I printed it as 2 pieces. And what I will probably do is plastic weld it together and then mount it in. So the PCB will fit in these 4 holes, and these holes along the edge here, along this edge, will have the captive nuts and screws through to hold it up. And it is a little bit on the floppy side, so the plastic welding might work well. There was another option for it, and that other option is to use a set of brackets. There's a set of 4 brackets that you can print out, and that's these pieces. And the idea is captive nut through onto the back, 2 of those, and the printed circuit board has 2 points captured on those holes here, and then you set up another pair on the other side, and there's nothing between them. This will work, but I think the one they demonstrate is this one, and I think I would prefer this one because it stops anything from coming up underneath and potentially shorting on the printed circuit board. So I will probably weld that together and I will put it in. Now, it's normally the next step to install that. Until I've welded that up, I'm going to skip over that step and move on to the next one. So the next one is going to be installing the power switch support bracket. Which is this piece. And the power switch, which came with all the other bits and pieces. And this is the power switch assembly. So that drops into there, and then we put 2 screws in to hold it. And then that gets mounted. I'll mount it up that way. We have 2 10mm screws go through there, M3 by 10mm, and the cap T-nuts. And that will go down the bottom rail down here towards the back. So let's find the screws for that and put that in. And they are M3 by 8 self-tapping screws. So they'll be in this container. And they're a Phillips screw. The screwdriver I'm using here is a Phillips number 2. One of the most commonly used screwdrivers by electricians. The next one is the power supply. Now the power supply is held on with these brackets and it comes in this box. Now they've used a Meanwell 24 volt 14.6 amp output power supply. Meanwell's actually got a very good name for itself as far as brands go, so I'm quite pleased with this one. And they're M4 by 5mm screws. And again, they're a Phillips screw. Now these brackets have two holes in them, what looks like an M3 and the larger one. If I didn't know better, I'd say that was M5 or a 5mm hole. Put them on the wrong side. Oh no, I haven't. That's right. M3 by 10mm. And we put the captive T-nuts on there again. Okay, the next thing we need to do is set up the vacuum pump assembly. So these two boards or prints, there's two of those, they mount together like so, and they have, like so, and they have little rubber mounts between them. So I'll just find those rubber mounts. And they came in this plastic bag with the air fittings. It's a very soft silicon-like rubber. This is for the air pump to mount on, so that it acts as sound deadening. Stops the vibration of the air vacuum pump from vibrating through the machine. And there's one more than I need. There's an old saying, better to be looking at it than looking for it. And so far he's been pretty good. I thought I was short one M3 nut, hex nut at one stage, but it turns out that I just used too many of them. So the right number was in there. Of course I should have put a screw through. M5 by 10. That would be these ones. And I should have put those in before I did these up. Okay, next toy to install is the pump. Okay, so this is a 24 volt mini pump. Part number ZR5551PM. Looks like it's made by the same people who made the solenoids up here. So far, everything that I've looked at on this machine as I've been building it looks to be reasonably quality components, which is good to see. Right, next is M3 by 8 screws. There's two of those, one in that hole and one in this hole. And then our small M3 rotating T-nuts again. I might look at potentially a different mounting location for that. I'm not a real fan of having it out past the side of the machine. I may end up mounting it underneath somewhere. But that'll be for another time. Let's just build it the way it was designed. Next one to install is the Mega 2560. So this is the housing. It's got provision for T-nuts. Mount on the side. Now the Mega 2560, in this case supplied, and I haven't checked to see if it's been programmed yet. I'm hoping it is. It comes with a printed circuit board already pre-attached, just plugged in. Has provision for 5 volt and ground. That'll be to supply all of the feeders. And I'm going to have to separate those boards to get this in. Now, standard Arduino Mega 2560 has provision for 6 mounting points. He's only using the 4 in this one, but that works. And he didn't specify which screws we're using. Now with the documentation, I think the way it was created is he's built a machine up, engineering as he goes, and then once he finished building it, he realized he probably needs some documentation, so he's disassembled it and photographed putting it all back together and video putting it all back together at the same time. Which means there are some parts like this would have been glued on. This board would have been separate when he was first engineering it, but when he's photographed it, putting it in, he's left it assembled. And I can see why he would do that. Makes perfect sense to me. Which is why I'm doing it the slow way here. This is my first build, by the way. Right, I'm going to take a stab in the dark here and say M8. Sorry, M3 by 8mm long. With the M3 T-nuts. Okay, the next thing he's got on the list is mounting. That's the demo board. Is mounting this. This is the main controller board. Right, so this has been designed by Bing, Microsmt, open sourced. Comes with a micro SD card pre-installed. I believe there's a file on there which is the settings for the demo. Heap of connectors on it. There is another bag that came in the box. Here we go. And in here is a heap of connectors and another stepper driver. He's using the TMC 2209 version 2 driver or stepper driver chip. There's a spare heatsink in there as well. I can't see any slots on here for it, so I'm thinking it's another spare part. I'll give him credit for that. He's supplied a lot of spare parts for this machine that are not always listed on the parts board. So this will get mounted like so, actually like so, on the on this motherboard mounting or mainboard mounting board. I'm going to install that after I've welded it up. So I'll do that off camera. I've done a heap of videos in the past on plastic welding, so I'll try and remember to put a link in at some stage at around this time for one of those welding videos. I'd suggest opening that up in another tab and watching it. Okay, so our next step is now running in the air lines and running in the cables. So I might actually do that in the next video. This one's been broken up. It's been a fairly hectic few days for me while trying to record this one at the same time. So I might try and do that one in the next video. If you like these videos, don't forget to click on like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. It's a form of support that helps the channel a great deal and costs you absolutely nothing. If you'd like to support the channel further, I do have a Patreon account and YouTube membership, and you can join my VIP patrons GoLucky, Copernicus, and Jeff Jerde, and my Builder patrons El Morellis45, Andrew Cardone, Airgar69, and James Kelly in helping to support the channel. All my YouTube members and patrons get these videos a week before they're released to general public on YouTube. If you have any questions, leave a comment below or drop into my Discord and ask your question in there. I am making a section in my Discord, a channel just for the pick and place machine. I've also discovered that there is a Discord for Microsmt, and I'll try and put a link to that in the description as well. And we'll see you in the next video.